In this video, we are going to talk about DSCR loan requirements, and we're going to start with a DSCR refi, a cash out refi, and we'll click into the loan in our My Loans section of our offer market account. That takes us directly into the processing section. So you'll see here what we consider a very simple checklist of items that need to be handled during processing. So we'll start with lease and occupancy. If this is a refinance and you want to qualify for maximum loan to value, then you'll upload your lease into this section. So just very simple drag and drop. Now, the next thing is loan application. So we have a very simple e-sign. You would click on complete your document. And within this view, a simple 2-page loan application appears. And you complete that. That authorizes us to run your soft credit report, and it authorizes us to order your appraisal report. Okay, so simple enough. Those two items are complete. In line with this being a leased property, if you do have a lease in place, we'd want to confirm that you've collected your security deposit and that you've collected your most recent rent up to the last 3 months worth of rent. So you would click on our e-sign to complete that security deposit and rent receipt. Now, if you have a third-party property management firm that is contracted to manage the property, this is where you would upload that property management agreement. It's not required. This is only here in the event that you do have a property management company that manages the property for you. The next item is very important, is borrowing entity. So you would, if you already have an offer market account, you can just add an existing, for let's say a previous loan that you've done with us, you can add a borrowing entity. And now that we've added the borrowing entity, we have the EIN, when it was formed, the address of the property. We have the membership interest in the LLC. If you have more than one member, you'd add the member, and then you would upload articles of organization and your operating agreement. You'll also be asked to upload your IRS EIN number or EIN letter. If you don't have that, you can just use a W-9 form, which you'll see here in this list. Next thing is verification of mortgage. Unless the property is free and clear with no existing debt, there's a mortgage or debt in place that needs to be paid off at settlement. So you would just click into verification of mortgage. We have a simple template. Otherwise, you can request a verification of mortgage from your servicer. In the verification of mortgage, it's very important to detail exactly what we need to see. We need to see how many payments have been made and if there have been any late payments. And this is signed off on by your servicer, by a representative of your servicer. So you would download our template and then provide that to your servicer and then upload it back into this section. What we do once you complete our loan application is we issue essentially, when you complete our loan application, you authorize us to run your credit report. And what we'll do here is we'll upload the credit report and the background report so that you can have fully transparent access to these documents. You'll see it's a soft tri-merge report, and that will show 3 credit scores from each of the 3 credit bureaus, and we use the middle score, the second highest score, to determine what credit score you have for the sake of confirming your loan terms. Now, when we order the appraisal, we will generally send an email from the appraisal management company, which includes an invoice to pay for the appraisal. Once that invoice is paid, the appraisal management company will authorize the appraiser to reach out to schedule inspection of the property. It's important to take a moment here to talk about appraisals. For a single family appraisal, for any DSCR loan, we want it to be an as-is appraisal. So there's a checkbox where the appraiser will check off as is. If they check off subject to repairs, then that does not qualify and we would need that to be revised. So maybe if you haven't yet completed your renovation of a property, the appraiser goes to the property and sees that there's, let's say the kitchen hasn't been finished. Their report might show subject to repairs instead of as is, and that would be a problem. There's a lot of other important details in terms of appraisal requirements. And I'll include a whole overview in the comments or in the description section for this video. But really, we want to make sure that the condition of the property is between C1 and C4. Appraisal condition ratings range from C1 to C6. C4 means that there's some deferred maintenance. C5 would not be eligible. That means that there's significant deferred maintenance. And C6 means that there's severe deferred maintenance, which is like a safety risk. So in order to qualify for a DSCR loan, the appraisal needs to be marked with a condition rating of C4 or lower. There can't be too much deferred maintenance that's mentioned by the appraiser. And because these need to be rent-ready properties, if the appraiser does mention deferred maintenance, for example, evidence of mold or possible mold in the basement, missing smoke detectors, then we may require those items to be cured prior to closing. So in a refinance transaction, that's generally very straightforward. In a purchase transaction, that could involve coordination with the seller, and it may be that a fix and flip, or as we call it, a fix and rent loan, makes more sense on a purchase if there's a good amount of deferred maintenance that would need to be cured in order for a DSCR loan to be implemented on the purchase. So next we have insurance verification. Now, with Offer Market, we make it really easy to shop for landlord insurance. You need to have a landlord insurance policy in place. We'll include a reference to more information about landlord insurance guidelines. Ultimately, we want to make sure that you have the most cost-effective landlord insurance policy in place, because that will allow you to optimize your debt service coverage ratio, which could be the difference between qualifying for, let's say, 75 LTV instead of 70 LTV. So having really cost-effective insurance is important. You can bring your own insurance, or you can very easily shop with Offer Market Insurance and get a quote very quickly through our system. Now, the next thing here, we need to see a government issued ID for each of the members of the borrowing entity. So you would be able to easily drag and drop that into our system. And then title order, very important. We need to make sure that there's clean title and that prior to scheduling closing, we have reviewed title work that's provided by your preferred title company. So you would simply add your preferred title company. This will, once you enter their name, this would give you the ability to enter a point of contact at the title company. And then you acknowledge that if for whatever reason you do not finish this transaction and the title company invoices you for the work that they've done, that you'll pay their invoice. It's very rare that that's actually the case, but that's the acknowledgement that you see here. Our strong preference is that we work with your preferred title company. We do have title companies that we work with, or title attorneys in certain states that we work with in the event that you don't have a recommended title company, but it's always preferred for you to use who you're most comfortable with as it relates to title. Payoff statement. The payoff statement goes hand in hand with the verification of mortgage. You're going to be asking your current lender for the existing debt that you may have on the property, or the servicer for the existing debt that you have on the property, to provide a payoff statement that is good through a certain date. Usually the good through date would be slightly after the expected closing date. So we need to make sure that there's no expiration or there's no expired payoff statement prior to the settlement date. So that, if there is a delay with your closing, then we may ask you to get a renewed payoff statement so that it's not expired at the time of settlement. We ask for owner verification. This is required as one of the items to complete your loan file. It just means the settlement statement from when you purchase this property. You just simply upload that into our system. Or it could be the deed from when you purchase the property. This just is like double verification that you are in fact the owner of this property, and we can confirm how much you paid for the property, because understanding your cost basis is a component of underwriting for DSCR loans. Bank statements are very important. We make it really easy to connect with Plaid, which is the leading, I would call it, financial technology integration system. So you can easily authorize us to download your 2 most recent bank statements through this Plaid integration, or you could simply just download them from your online banking portal and upload them into our system. We're just looking for the 2 most recent bank statements. And it's important to go into a little bit more detail here about bank statements. It doesn't need to be bank statements. It could be brokerage account statements, retirement account statements. Technically, we need to verify liquidity, but if it's a cash out refi, you may be getting way more cash out than the amount of liquidity that we need to verify. Generally, we need to verify that in reserves, you have usually 9 months of mortgage payments for maximum LTV and 6 months of mortgage payments for a lower LTV. So you don't need to provide bank statements. We call the section bank statements. In the industry, it's called bank statement verification. But again, it could be a retirement account. It could be a brokerage account. And retirement accounts would be treated as 50% of the dollar value in the retirement account counts, because it's a restricted account. The other common question around bank statement and liquidity verification, does it need to be a bank account registered for the borrowing entity for your LLC, let's say? No, it can be a personal bank account. If it's a personal bank account, it needs to be tied to the guarantor. So if you have 2 members in the LLC and one owns 51% and one owns 49% of the LLC, then the bank statements or the statements that we're using to verify liquidity need to be linked to the 51% owner in that example, the guarantor on the loan. If there are 2 50% members, then it could be from either member or both member. You can have as many different accounts as long as we have 2 consecutive months, most recent months, uploaded for each account that you're using for liquidity verification. Hopefully I haven't confused you too much. Ask any questions in the comments section. We'll be happy to answer them. It's very straightforward, especially for a cash out refi. ACH form. This is the form that you would fill out. It's an e-sign. This is the form that you would fill out when you're ready to schedule closing. And it tells us for our servicing team how we should be automatically debiting or drafting payments before we transfer the loan to a long-term servicer. So we want to make sure that there aren't any missed payments during the usually 30 to 60 days when we transfer the loan from our servicing team to a longer-term servicer. And you'll receive email confirmation, and you'll be able to see here in the servicing section of your loan file, once your loan is funded, information about who's currently servicing it. And then when the servicing transfer occurs, you'll see that information as well. That's why we ask for ACH form. You're essentially just telling us the instructions for how you're going to be making your monthly payment. The W-9 form is a IRS form that you need to fill out for servicing purposes. It essentially allows us to send you your 1098 mortgage interest form, which we then file with the IRS, so you can get your tax deductions for having paid mortgage-related interest expenses. So that's a very important, simple form to fill out. And again, we enable it through e-sign. And then finally, DSCR loans are business purpose loans. And so as a business purpose loan, you can imagine we need to verify that you are not going to be living in this property, that you are not currently living in this property. So we ask you to confirm that you live in an alternate property. So you would either provide us with a verification of mortgage for that other property, or you would provide us with a mortgage statement. And if you rent or if you own a property free and clear, then we have instructions here for how you would go about this simple step of verification. So that is everything that you should expect as far as DSCR loan requirements. We make it very simple for you to take care of these items while you're waiting for your appraisal report to come back. And once your appraisal report comes in, we will upload it into your loan file, and we will review it in detail and let you know if there's anything that needs to be cured as far as deferred maintenance. And then we'll update your loan terms to make sure that you have the most competitive and relevant loan terms based on all of the confirmed inputs now that we're ready to lock your terms and schedule your closing. Now, before we end this video, I do want to do a quick walkthrough of a purchase scenario. So here in this, what we call our My Loans section, I have a second loan file, and this is for a purchase transaction. And so when you get an instant DSCR loan quote and you submit it, you would arrive at your loan terms, and then you would be able to access your processing section. If you're purchasing this property, you may want to download a pre-approval letter. So this is the point where, without waiting for a loan officer or waiting for your pre-approval request, you can just download a pre-approval letter that's specific to you and this property. And you can include that with your offer. And then if your offer is accepted, it will be generally included in the purchase contract, especially if you're dealing with real estate agents on an on-market transaction. And that brings me to the next point. You would upload your purchase contract, and then the same steps from this point forward apply. You'd complete the loan application and so forth. So there you go. This is very comprehensive DSCR loan requirements. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions whatsoever, if anything wasn't explained clearly, please feel free to reach out in the comments section or reach out to our company. And as always, you can get an instant DSCR loan quote over at offermarket.us. It takes under a minute, just about, in many cases under a minute. And we'd love to work with you and help you build wealth through real estate and grow and optimize your rental portfolio. Thanks so much and have a great day.